What is up, guys? Welcome back to my garage. As always, my name is Tim, and today we're going to be changing the fuel pump from this SX KTM tank into this IMS oversized tank. It's always kind of a pain, so if you've never had to do this, consider yourself lucky, because whenever you're switching tanks, if you don't want to spend $200 plus on a whole fuel pump, you got to swap them over. Now, you can use wire or string and tie it to it and pull it down through the bottom, through these holes down here. However, because this is IMS, I can stick my hand right down in here. It makes it way easier. Super simple, but you have to feed the pump in from the back right here. Here's the pump. Just wiping down around the edge where the gasket goes right here, where this big O-ring is. I'm also going to put a tiny bit of grease on this. Very minimal, not much at all, just so it's shiny looking. The only reason I do that is just so that it slides on the plastic when you're tightening it down and it just doesn't bind, and I find it always gives it a good seal. Just like if you ever put new O-rings in, like, say, the head for a two-stroke head, like on a KTM. The O-rings on that, you lube up with a little bit of two-stroke oil. It's the same thing. Anyway, so this only fits in here one direction. Yeah, this way. So this is the way you put it in. It just slides in. Just feed it in. These ones on this KTM model, the plug faces down. And now, with this IMS tank, you can obviously see the bottom and the hole down there. I can reach my hand right down in there, and I'm just going to feed it through those holes. And also wipe out a single piece of dirt that fell in here. Got the dirt, perfect. Look at that, I already got one hole lined up. 2 holes right there. If you know with a regular tank, it's a pain. When I switched from this tank back to the black one, it sucked. But I gotta go grab the nuts for this. Alright, now I have the other pieces here. That should relatively sit in there on its own. Just making sure I didn't get any dirt in there. I made sure my hands were clean and everything. Obviously, I'm all clean. So, again, just a tiny bit of grease on here. Just enough so that it's shiny. And the reason for that is just so when it's spinning on there, nothing gets bound up. Putting it on its side. There's 2 O-rings on this other piece here for the small nipple. Just wipe them off, make sure there's no dirt on them. You want to make sure that you get a good seal and everything's clean. No Loctite or anything on these. You don't go crazy tight. Remember, it's just a plastic tank. So again, just making them shiny. Try not to have much extra on anything. The gas should dissolve it, but you don't want to have much in there anyway. You don't want there to be contamination in your tank. And this is the other O-ring for the top of it. Nice and lubed up. So I'm not going to fully tighten this one down. I'm just going to have it screwed in a little bit. The reason for that is I pushed it out. Give me a second. You can imagine how hard this would be with the normal gas tank cap. When you, on the stock tank, it's only about that big, you know, a regular gas tank filler. You can't get your arm through there. You can barely even stick a screwdriver in and try to maneuver it. So IMS putting this on, it just makes it so much easier. And then there's this little curve part here. It goes up against, ouch, gas in a cut. It goes up against the round part of the piece that we just put on. This is just like a catch. When I took that off, there's a little bit of gunk in there. I think that's what it's for. A 17 millimeter. It's got to adjust this a little bit, make it easy to go in. Make sure you line it up. They actually like fit into slots. I don't know if you could catch that on cam, but it has to sit into its slot. If you do not do that, all you're doing is crushing this metal and your plastic in the wrong spot. So you're just gonna damage your tank and it might not seal. So it's simple. Just make sure you guys pay attention. This is how I believe all the KTMs are, gas. I don't know how they are in 23, but this is how they are, similar from, I think even like 2012, it was a really similar design. That was their first year of fuel injection. Actually, 2011 350s were their first year, and they ran lean, very lean. Or maybe it was the first year for the 350, but either way, they've always been relatively the same design. Different screen microns have changed, like the screen that goes in the other end of this. Which, make sure you guys change that screen where this part plugs in. It comes out, that little gray screen, every once in a while. I do it at least once a year, if not every time I do a top end. And again, you don't have to reef these down very hard. It's just a feel thing. That should be good. And now, well, I was gonna put the top in, but we'll do these back ones. These ones are Allen's in this case. On the stock tank, they're 6 millimeters. They're basically wood screws on the stock setup. If you've ever had an IMS tank, you know that these bolts like to seize in, especially for the shrouds. The steel bolts and the brass fittings, the square nuts in the tank sometimes will start spinning and it's just terrible. So just a little bit of anti-seize goes a long way, especially if you leave your tank on for long periods of time. I can't tell you how many tanks I've had or seen that they have a bolt, like any of these bolts, any of these brass grommets in the tank, they just will start to spin or get stripped out. So you don't tighten them super crazy. Obviously tight enough, but not too tight. Not very much, just a little bit. Just want to be careful. Alright. Now it's time to put the best part in. It's easy, it just sits in there, no direction really. Holes will line up, no problem. And then once again, small steel screws. Only a tiny bit on these, there's not much. And again, this is just so that they don't seize in there, especially on this part, because you need to take this off, you know, to service it. Or if you sell your tank, sometimes people take them out. This whole piece. I actually had this on a 125 tank, and when I got my 250 and got a tank, I obviously just switched over. When I sold my other tank, I had a regular filler cap adapter, so it was no big deal. These things are pretty pricey, but the reason why I'm putting this tank on is I might be racing this weekend, and I don't really want to pit. Plus, with being it's a 2-hour race, so being with a black tank, I can't see how much fuel I have left, and this is much bigger, so I should be good. I'd have to pit in a 3-hour, like a 3-hour GNCC, but I wanted to go to Ironman the last race. However, it's on a weekend of our fall series here, and although Ironman is a lot of fun, it's a far drive just to go race and come back. Where these little fall races, it's the Western New York Hare Scramble series at Area 51, Hogback Hill, Sick Bros, and Pavilion MX. 4 weekends in a row, I believe. Always fun every year. The payout kind of sucks, to be honest with you. They pay back to like, it depends, but sometimes they pay back to like 12th place, 10th place. So the winner only gets like $200 maybe, even if you had 30-something people in the class. But that's why a big turnout comes, because they know they'll at least get a little bit of money. I remember when I was an A kid and just went up to that front line, I really enjoyed getting paid and going to those races, even if it was only $60-$80. And again, when I was putting these in, I did them cross from each other relatively. It didn't need to be perfect. These basically end up being flush. Now, that doesn't mean you just screw them all into being flush and just say, oh, that's how tight they need to be. You actually have to feel them. And again, adding just a little bit of grease to this O-ring here. This is where it seals for the top of your tank. I don't like those plastic ones, so I have a metal one. Just lube that up just a little bit, just like that. Now my tank is ready to go. Gotta put my shrouds back on it, but time to put the moto tank in storage until, I don't know, probably next year. I'll be riding moto, but I'll just keep this tank on. I'm not worried about it at all, so. If you made it this far in the video, please leave a thumbs up. I really appreciate it. And if you haven't, subscribe to the channel. We do fun stuff like this all the time. This is nothing new. Bike maintenance, riding, working on trail, anything and everything that you can think of, we do. Leave a comment down below and give me a suggestion on a video you would be interested in. This is why it's important to change out these little gray screens. You can see how it's like darker there. It's all dirt. There's also a pretty big chunk of dirt in there. You can see that. So luckily I have more of these. And I just used a wood screw just like this. And you just screw it in there and just pull it right out. They're relatively expensive for what they are, because they're just such a tiny screen. But this is what protects your injector from getting clogged. This is your last line of defense. So make sure you guys are checking this on a regular basis. Right here is where that came out of. As always, my name is Tim again. This was Steiner Family Motorsports, and I hope to catch you in the next one. Peace.